we're at the Central Bar and we're with Ghost Signals, or three of Ghost Signals. How are you doing, guys?
Good, thanks.
Good, thank you.
So we've got George, Eve and Rick. Where's the other two then? What are they up to already?
Jackson's at work.
Right, that's a fair excuse.
Yeah, and Mark is social distancing.
Oh, right, oh no.
Yeah, so he doesn't like all these things anyway, to be honest, so it's probably quite convenient.
So how's your lockdowns been then anyway? I guess I should start there. We're recording this, so as we're coming out of lockdown, we think, very shortly indeed, hopefully July the 19th is the date. Have you been able to do much music during the whole lockdown thing?
So about halfway through, Eve joined the band.
Of course, yeah.
So there was like a little period where we were allowed to rehearse, like
yes.
Using like social distancing conditions and all that kind of stuff. But it's been kind of on and off since. So it's been a bit frustrating in that sense. We've been trying to like record our like debut album as well.
Okay, right.
And thankfully there's been some like studios that have been really quite pragmatic and saying like just if you want to do some dry hire and just go in there and do record.
I guess the studios are just keen to get people in after not being able to for so long.
Yeah, exactly. So thankfully those studios like places like Polestar, for example, we've been able to just hire the room. But other, it's with the lack of rehearsal space and the lack of studios around, it's just been quite difficult to kind of get together and demo songs but yeah, it's picking up again now, so fingers crossed.
Well, you recently played in Sunderland at Independent.
Yes.
So how was that after not doing a proper gig for so long?
It's really good, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought it went quite well,
Yeah,
Because we only rehearsed a couple of times before the gig, didn't we? Because obviously we had quite a while without rehearsing. But the gig itself, I thought went quite well.
Yeah, it was still a socially distanced gig, so it was quite a strange situation where you're standing up on stage and people are obviously sitting at their tables.
Of course,
and
yeah.
Stuff. So and it was still a good fun gig. I really enjoyed it. But you did feel a bit like a cabaret host at sometimes, Just, but it was Eve's first gig as well.
Yeah.
For us. So I don't know, how did you find it?
I mean, I've played little things before, but I've never done a real gig with like a proper band, so having that be my first gig with people at tables where you weren't even allowed to dance in the rules, it was very strange.
Did it feel good to be playing though, after maybe not for ages?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there was points during the gig where there's like quite a lot of instrumental bits in our songs, and like at the very end, a new song we started playing called Kill the North, like the last chorus doesn't have any vocals whatsoever. So I just left the stage and just like went I just left them to it. But I just went to the back of the room and just for the first time ever, just had a listen.
Took it in.
How does this band actually sound? And it's like actually it's not to like, because obviously I was off stage, so I'm not really inflating my own ego that much. But yeah, it just sounded.
Did it sound vastly different in the crowd to what you thought it sounded like on stage?
It sounded huge. I thought, yeah, that's cool. It's like a bit of a wall of noise just coming out.
Well, let's go back to the start then, because Ghost Signals has been around for a little bit now. Was it your idea at first, Rick? Was it all come for you, or was it more of a collaborative thing? How did it all start off? How did you become Ghost Signals?
So it started off. Obviously, yeah. So these two weren't around at that time. So it's a bit of a weird one because like before Ghost Signals started, I hadn't been in a band for about 3 years, and Mark, the drummer, it was the same for him, and Andy, our bassist at the time. Andy and I had been in bands for about 7 or 8 years for a while, and throughout our 20s, I suppose, it was just like kind of like doing that typical, we want to be in a band, and we want to get famous, and we want to, and we did some cool stuff, but it wasn't, realistically, it wasn't, it wasn't going to go anywhere. And then like the last gig that we did, the drummer turned up really late, and then just announced that he was leaving the band because he was moving to London. And so I just ended up just getting really pissed and playing that last gig, thinking, you know what, I'm fed up with this now. I've had my shot. That's it. And so we just, and we didn't gig again for like another 3 years, Andy and I. And then we still kept like kind of like rehearsing and writing songs, but
Was it Ghost Signals at that point?
No, it wasn't. No, it was
no.
like complete different bands. Like Andy and I was like the constant members, but we had like a revolving cast of like drummers and guitarists and keyboard players and but Andy and I just kept on kind of just rehearsing and playing some like goth cover tunes and all that kind of stuff, and just for a laugh, really. Not really, we had no intention of doing anything serious. And I think that kind of like came out in the songs. So suddenly we was writing songs like Start Families, Avoid Shit Parties, which is like, and it just, and I suppose it's just like a bit of, it's just funny how things work out. Like you try and take yourself so seriously for years, and then you just give up and write stupid songs, and they're the ones that people start liking and catching on to, and then and then we just and then we just thought. Mark came on board. We auditioned for a drummer. We're not auditioned. We were begged for a drummer to come. There was no audition about it whatsoever.
Hard to find a good drummer.
Yeah. Mark was already in 4 bands at that time, I think it was. So and then we just we did our first gig at the Time Bar, and people just seemed kind of like interested. Just like it was having, I suppose, an indie band with like a little bit of a goth inflected sound, and we're just a 3-piece at that point as well. It just seemed to kind of just take off from there. So we just booked more and more gigs. Again, there weren't really anything too serious. If you look at our first year of existing as a band, we're just playing mainly pubs in Gateshead, and just like just not really. I mean, we'd submit stuff to obviously yourself on BBC Intro. So thanks for playing that stuff. But again, that's that sort of thing in itself. It's just things we weren't just expecting. I think in previous bands we'd submitted stuff to radio stations and again just got nowhere really, and then suddenly you just write some daft songs about avoiding shit parties and songs like called Trauma, which is a play on the film title Tora, and then and it's just suddenly kind of like just went from there. So it was a bit of a strange one. There wasn't any kind of intention of, I guess, Ghost Signals being where we are today. But here we are, and it's I suppose dead happy with that.
So you're a new member, Eve. Did they originally help you out on a school project? Is that right? Is that how it all started up for you?
So as part of BTEC Music, we had to put on a gig, and it actually wasn't my job. I was the sound engineer. I wasn't supposed to get the band in, but there was like a lot of arguments about how we're going to get a band. People were talking about like the vamps and people who just wouldn't even open the email. And I went, well, I know a local band who's a mate of my dad, so I just asked Rick. So
you kind of went in and were the practice band for the sound engineer,
yeah? Yeah, kind of. It was just was doing kind of like a bit of a, I suppose, like a good deed. So well, not a good deed. That sounds inflating what it is, but it was good. It was a good fun gig to do, and we just enjoyed playing live anyway. But it was just so like Eve and her peers could have a band that they could do the sound for and lighting and all that kind of stuff, and pass their qualifications. So it was a good fun gig actually, because it was in your school hall, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And a mate of mine came along who's he's a fair bit older than me. He's like in his 50s, and he was like he came in and he was just like, this reminds me of the gigs I used to do in the 70s, like the punk bands would play in like kind of school halls, because no other venues would put them on. And he's like, proper. It felt like he said it was like a proper old school gig, and I was like, awesome. That's quite cool.
So did Eve come into the band to cover you when you weren't so well this year during the lockdown thing? Is that right?
Yeah. So I had some issues with my kidneys, and I think this is largely down to lockdown, just drinking 8 cups of coffee a day and beer and no fluid whatsoever. But I had to be rushed in for surgery, which resulted in like I'm not going into the details, but like a stent being inserted into my kidney, and some people take really well to it, but I just didn't at all. And because of lockdown as well, there was, to have it removed at the end, there was like a really long waiting list. Normally it'd be done in like 4 weeks, but I think I had to wait like 2.5 months or something like that. And the nurse was like, well, whilst you're doing that, you shouldn't be like straining, you shouldn't be carrying heavy objects and all that kind of stuff. So the extent of my practicing was limited to just like walking to the practice room. I couldn't like hold a guitar or or play it whatsoever. So we just said to Eve, like, with you obviously wanting a kind of like a route into gigging and being in bands and that kind of stuff, do you just want to like kind of fill in my guitar parts? whilst I'm recovering. And she did a fantastic job, learning really quickly. I think we asked you to do it, and then like 2 weeks later we were in the practice room, wasn't it? So yeah, and then you know as time went on, we found out she played them better than I did. So so we just asked her to stay, and thankfully she did.
So do you both guitar live now, or
No,
do you
I
just do vocal now? Is that it?
I just do vocal.
Oh,
which
okay,
is, yeah.
right. Well, hence you walking to the other side of the
Yes,
room, I suppose.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
first time you're able to do that. So tell us about your influences then, Rick. Fogo Signals, very much a goth thing coming through. Fan of The Cure, fan of Suede. Is that where we're coming from?
Yeah, I love bands like The Cure. That's obvious. I think that comes across as really obvious in some of our playing. People always come up to us after gigs saying, "Oh, you sound like The Cure." And we did a gig in Derby once, and some guy was just yelling out, "Boys don't cry!" And I think bands like Suede, I think that kind of influenced the subject matter of the band. A lot of the imagery as well. You know, we do some quite abstract imagery on our CD covers, and maybe like the crazy song titles as well, Queen of the Oxygen Thieves and all that kind of stuff.
Some great song titles.
Yeah.
Have you thought about artwork for the album then?
Yes, I have.
Thought you might.
Yeah, and it's I think it's gonna be an interesting vibe. But yeah, it will still be kind of abstract and left to your own interpretation as to what it is. I don't know, I'm one of these people. Someone said ages ago that, you know, I think something that's missing maybe from streaming now is like the days of when you could buy a physical copy of an album. Like the artwork would influence how you listen to it, and especially like reading through the inlay card and all that kind of stuff. I think it really does. So I've just kind of always still wanted to like kind of maintain that that approach to things with us.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, that's my influence. And yeah, like say a few goth bands like the Last Cry, maybe not so much goth, but like the Comedians, you know, or you kind of like post-punk 80s bands. Obvious ones like Joy Division. I think every time I drive Eve home, there's always like from practice rooms, there's always like Joy Division on in the car. Like it's just it isn't constantly on though. I don't know. It just seems to always.
It's me.
Yeah. That's it. The car just knows.
And you a fan of that kind of music, Eve, or you like more contemporary stuff as well?
I mean, I like most stuff, but I do listen to like Joy Division and The Cure. I just don't think I'm as big a fan as you are.
Oh, it's good to have different sort of members having different influences. What about you, George? Are you
so I listen to The Cure. I suppose me and Rick kind of like stuff like Tears for Fears, that kind of 80s stuff. Me and the drummer Mark really like Radiohead, so
I love
one of
Radiohead.
my favourite bands. But yeah, I suppose we're all influenced by different things. I suppose the thing that makes me different is I listen to stuff, you know, like slightly progressive rock stuff like Rush and Genesis. Don't know about Genesis before, but
Yeah.
I listen to everything really. Like I'm happy with anything. Yeah.